Morning. Robin said earlier that it's scary standing up here talking to a big audience. It's nothing half as scary as waiting to hear what Nick's about to say about you. I think I got let off lightly. Can I get you all to grab your voting buttons? I'm going to start with a bit of context. My name's Pete Duncan. You might recognise the bright yellow bus. Haggis Adventures where I work. The little flags down the side there gives you a bit of background about the types of customers that Haggis carries. But I'm not here to talk about Haggis. So we're going to go to question. Hopefully you don't have to think about it too much. Which age category best describes you? I should have perhaps put on there a sixth one if we'd had an option of I don't know or I'm not sure. 30 to 44, 41%. So basically 18 to 29. Less than 30 is less than 20% in the room. So that gives us a bit of context. I want you to have a quick look at these two lists here. You're trying to decide whether A or B. You don't necessarily have to agree with every single word on either side, but the question is, which list best represents young visitors to Edinburgh? In your mind, without thinking about it too much, quick scan down the list. Are you going to press A or B? Making you think. Wow. Don't know what to do now. 50-50. It's like having an independence referendum. Oh, there we go. Oops. Right. If you chose A, you're probably back when I started with Haggis Adventures back in 1998. If you press B, you're probably slightly more in touch of what's happening today in the market of young people. I'm going to stereotype, as is the only thing you can do when you're talking about big groups of people, but that gives you some context. No matter what age category you're in, if you're A, you're probably stuck in the past a little bit. And I'm just going to run through a few reasons why. When I first got asked to do this, the first question I had was, well, what do you mean by young people? And ever since then, that's the first question I've been asked when people have heard about what I'm going to talk about. What are young people? So I thought I would address that question in this slide. There's a number of different ways you can define people. Visit Scotland, say it's 16 to 25-year-olds or 16 to 24-year-olds. Certainly can't disagree with that category, or that definition rather. From a Haggis Adventures perspective, we attract 18 to 35-year-olds. We find that the 16 to 18 age group are still traveling with families, so they're not necessarily making their own buying decisions. And the older, if you want to call it that, the older category, the 26 to 35s, we're finding a change in pattern where our customers are studying, then working, and then traveling. Whereas 20 years ago, you would perhaps study and then take off around the world. So that's one way of defining by age. The next one down there is by the generational tags. Gen X, Gen Y, we're into millennials now. I can't look into the future. 2018, is it still going to be millennials? Probably. Are we going to start crossing over into whatever's next? I've just put down independent travelers. I'm not sure what comes after millennials. And the last one I've put on there because it's a market segmentation rather than age-based. The first two there, adventure seekers and curious travelers, are what we at Haggis Adventures would attract. And I was quite interested when I put this together. Adventure seekers, the first one, 55% are under 35. You'd probably expect that. The interesting thing about that market segmentation is that as well as adventure in the traditional sense, so whitewater rafting or whatever, that also includes cultural visits and going to visit sites and so on. And I think that's important because our customers, although we work in the youth market, they're not all about whitewater rafting. They are interested in culture. The curious traveller, we would also attract the curious travellers. If you don't know what these, if you want more of a definition of what these categories are, you can get them from Visit Scotland. But a curious traveller, only 25% of them are under 35, but a significant market of, or a significant number of our customers at Haggis would be in that category. And the final one, I thought was interesting for many of you sitting in this room, food-loving culturalists. 33%, a third of them are under 35. Now, traditionally, Haggis, we wouldn't attract a food-loving culturalist. But if you're sitting here and you have a restaurant or a bar or a cafe or anything to do with food, there's a huge market that could fall into the under 35 age category that you might not be considering at the moment. So, for those of you who pressed B, half of the room, half of the room, 1998, those pictures there kind of represent what was probably in your mind. A backpacker, kind of a little bit grungy, as much time as they've got to travel. The backpack there is pretty much exactly what mine looks like, so it shows you where I'm from. Their traveling style, as long as it was cheap, they didn't care. So the picture there of everyone crammed into a coach or whatever, it's probably typical. Empty pockets, they've got no cash, trying to do everything on a budget. The bunk there is probably stereotypical of back in 1998. People would arrive into Edinburgh, look for a dorm, the bigger the better, the cheaper the better, and didn't really care what the standard was like. And at the bottom there, just for our customers at Haggis Adventures, London was the central hub for travel into the UK. And in fact, Europe, even wider than the UK, everyone would fly into London and then disperse and go and do whatever they did. So we jump forward to now, looking forward to 2018. The style is completely different. So instead of your backpacker grungy style, young people today are making style-based decisions. So they'd probably rather go and have a coffee or a cappuccino or a latte than the cheapest pint they could find. That's not to say that backpackers still don't exist, but the market has definitely shifted. The suitcases there are representing the kind of style of travel. The wheelie suitcase, we probably noticed 10 years ago now. The backpacker moved to the flash packer because they had suitcases that are backpacks. They're moving on again. Even the flash packer tag doesn't quite fit, but the suitcases represent that. I like the little the head pillow. I've got absolutely no evidence for this, but when I found that online, that head pillow, which is meant to represent the travel style, young people are looking for comfort, that apparently is the top-selling travel accessory in China at the moment. Like I said, no actual evidence for that, but that's what the website I pulled the picture from said. They do have money to spend. They're looking for value, absolutely, but they've got cash. So young people traveling today are not all skint. The picture there of the dorm just shows that hostel standards have improved, but I'm going to talk about that in a second. And last at the picture at the bottom there is basically to represent, again, touches on what Gordon said earlier about the airport. We are definitely noticing growth of regional airports and people flying direct into Edinburgh, and that has been hugely important for us at Haggis Adventures as well, and that is definitely a change within the way that young people travel. I wanted to put these slides up because if you're in the A button, half of the room, and you've got an image of a hostel in your mind, this is where hostels are today. These are all pictures from hostels in Edinburgh. There are obviously some that need to get up to the standard, but this is the type of standard that hostels are providing. The word poshtel is starting to emerge. So as well as hostels, competing with budget hotels, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Airbnb. So by the time 2018 comes, the accommodation type that young people expect is going to have changed. Okay, so the way that we communicate with young people. Back in 1998, word of mouth was actually word of mouth. People actually spoke to each other. Nowadays, TripAdvisor is what everyone goes on to find out about what their next experience is going to be. Is TripAdvisor going to be as big in 2018? Probably. I can't imagine it's going to go anywhere. But the point is that word of mouth is not word of mouth anymore. How do we take bookings and reservations? Back in 1998, you'd either walk in and book a tour with us, or you pick up the phone on a landline and give us a call. Nowadays, it's all mobiles. You can still walk in and you can still pick up a landline and give us a call, but you can book on tablets, mobile phones. There's tons of stuff you can do. If you haven't heard of WeChat or Alipay, I'm sure you will very shortly. They're the biggest instant messaging and the PayPal equivalents in China. Lastly, at the bottom there, how do young people share experiences? 1998 was probably a postcard. Nowadays, it's a selfie. We're moving on to the braggies by video. So, Visit Scotland have themed years. Why? To provide opportunity. Diversification, if something you can think about. About a third of the visitors visiting Edinburgh are under 35. Have you considered them in your market? Collaborating. If we all work together, sell Edinburgh, we're going to get many more repeat visitors. The young people who visit today are the senior visitors of tomorrow. Innovation. Just heard about innovation. Young people tend to be at the early stage of the innovation curve. So if you're wanting to find out what's happening in the future, even if you don't consider young people as a target audience for you, you might want to keep an eye on it, find out what's happening, and then you can incorporate those changes into your business, get ahead of that curve. Lastly, my contact details are there. There's a few of us in the room have already met up very recently. We're trying to pull together a bit of a network for young people or the youth market within Edinburgh. Particular help to Jane from Smart City, who's sitting right in the middle of the room. So if anyone is interested in hearing more about the youth market or wants to get involved in Edinburgh, feel free to contact me, come speak to me afterwards, speak to Jane, and I think that's my 10 minutes up. Thanks for listening. Cheers.